Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio. Thanks for being here. I'm Heather Mason, NBDA President. Today, we have Ryan Atkinson of Workstand. Workstand is a platform that helps bike shops manage their online presence and e-commerce strategies. Ryan and I, great friends, we cover a wide range of topics. We gather some deep insights into e-commerce strategies, online marketplaces, and dive into the future of e-commerce. I think you'll love this. Special thanks to Ryan. Always a pleasure to have him on the show. Ryan, welcome back to Bicycle Retail Radio. How are you?
I'm good. I love seeing you. It's only been a couple of weeks, but it's a delight every time.
Yeah, that's right, because we saw each other in Bentonville. Yeah. Wow. Time flies always. Listeners, Ryan Atkinson, president of Workstand, the company that used to be called Smart E-tailing. Workstand is best known for their e-commerce websites used by 20% of bike shops in the US. He's really tuned into the state of the industry and how retail has changed in the digital age. This is a conversation, a topic that comes up often in our Monday mingles with retailers and our P2 groups. So I'm really excited to have Ryan back on the podcast. I know we're gonna have a lot to talk about today. Ryan, how are things going at Workstand recently? Any new developments or projects?
Yeah, well, you know, things are going really well. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about some numbers later, but I think every dealer is a little bit of a case by case basis right now. And I got a really good text from a client yesterday, and he said that he sold $55,000 online last month. And a year ago, they were barely selling anything. So in a market that, kind of is hovering, around flat, I will take any report of a dealer doing really well. I know that the platform's great. I know that our marketing is great, but consumers are fickle right now.
That's a
New
huge,
things.
that's a
Oh,
huge win. It's just such a big win.
absolutely. And so what happened is the person who was running the online store for another client, a client who had sold to one of the major manufacturers, went to go work at a smaller shop in Southern California and just brought all the same techniques with him. It's just crushing it. It's so much fun to see.
Fantastic.
I think it's a testament, and all your listeners know this, like who you have on your staff can make all the difference in the world. It's a lot like, you can have a great store, but if the manager kind of changes and they're not particularly good, like the store performance suffers. It's the same thing.
Gotta be all in, all in.
Yeah. Um, but let's see, we've last month we released a pretty big feature. So the product detail page is what you call it when you're shopping for an item. And because we have so much data and so many variations on products, we used to have these drop-down menus, but today we moved to a much more modern system where there's like what they call tiles that a customer can choose. And so it's just really makes shopping a lot easier. And, even though sales are a little bit flat right now, customer traffic on websites is really high. And so anything we can do to help conversion rates is a big deal. And then on the supplier front, we set some pretty ambitious goals for getting more suppliers connected with Supplier Sync this year. And we've had great luck. So far this year, we're already on target to hit our goal. And we've got a couple big ones coming the next couple of months. One is a bike company that I just think dealers are going to be stoked about. So the more that we can bring kind of both sides of the channel together and get suppliers really connected with dealers, I think we all win.
I love the work you're doing there, and I love the conversations the suppliers, like at the Bentonville in Bentonville at the MBDA Retailer Summit, we had suppliers and retailers, and I mean you were there, and the conversations were great. And the more we can get working cohesively, as in you're doing here, it just helps everyone. Yeah, the summit. How was your time? It was
It was great. And the supplier piece, I think, is one like I would have called out. Like you've done a great job as an ambassador for retailers to like get suppliers to the table. And I mean, so many of the attendees there were suppliers who, I mean, it's clear from hearing them talk, one-on-one or when they're on stage, like they really want to support dealers. And so you've got the right people there, which is great. And then suppliers was the topic of the presentation I did while I was there. And it was really around how suppliers see dealers as a part of like an overall digital strategy. And I thought there were really good conversations that happened, and so hopefully attendees enjoyed it. But it was nice, caught up with some old friends, went out to meals with a couple people I've worked with for a long time and met some new people. Um, on the education front, I loved that you filled the agenda with a lot of dealers that were presenting. I think it goes a long way, for peers to listen to each other. Even though I know a couple of them were uncomfortable to be on stage, they did a great job. Um, and then I'll tell you, Heather, when I looked at the agenda, I thought there was no way you were going to stay on schedule, but amazingly, you did a great job. Like seriously, each morning was so jam-packed. I was
I
no
appreciate
chance, but
I
you nailed
appreciate
it.
that. Yeah, wow. It was cool. It was cool to see those retailers up there, right?
Yeah.
And also to see the suppliers. I mean, your presentation, we had QBP there, and you and the other suppliers were in a position where retailers could really ask you any question. And everyone handled them with grace, and it was an opportunity for us all to learn. And I mean, I just get goosebumps thinking of that because, time, resource, energy, and just that authenticness. And that's where the magic happens, I think. So,
Yeah, I totally. It is a people business, and there were a lot of people connecting. It was really nice.
okay, so before we hit record, we always like catch up before we hit record. Listeners, it happens. But we were talking about May online sales. And I know from our P2 groups, the conversation is like, how have you been doing in May with your online sales? It's nice to hear some comfort about what's happening out in the marketplace. Might you share some of that with our listeners now?
Yeah, I've been poring over May. So there's three big data sources I look at every month. One is the most recent data that People for Bikes puts out, which is of course the Circana sales data, participation data. Um, I look at our own information, and then I look at Google search performance. But the advantage of our platform is we have all that data, right away versus like the People for Bikes data is a couple months old. So May, had some positives and some negatives. On the kind of a negative front is order volume across the entire platform was down. It was down 14% for the month. It's already been a bit of a soft spring, kind of March and April. Um, but this was the softest month yet, which was a bit of a downer. Now, that didn't necessarily equate to a sales drop. So across the platform, order volume was up, or excuse me, order value was up. So a lot of consumers are buying bikes right now and laddering up bikes to take advantage of deals. And so total platform was up 2%, which was a big deal. Also on the positive front, like sessions and page views, so the number of people visiting bike shop websites and the number of pages they visit, were really strong. I mean, we're talking triple digit growth over last year. So customers are really shopping right now. And that aligns with the Google data. Search volume in May was the strongest it's been in the last 18 months. And so consumers are out there shopping. I suppose another bright spot is that the typical retailer, so we try to measure, who fits within just kind of the middle of the market bike shop. They had their best month of the year. So they were only down 2% for the month. That's versus down 7% in April. They're still lagging behind the top performers, who tend to have really aggressive Google programs, or they're just in, multi-store, major market, major brands. But I think when the typical dealer is doing well, that definitely is a good sign for us. But I'm still, as we get into the season, things are slower than I'd like to see. I had what, and I can now see as unfounded optimism coming out of February, because February sales were so strong, and like the factory bike sales were pushing so much sales volume. I think the season started early in different parts of the country. Um, so I misread the season. I think after that, it really flattened out. And so now I think it's reasonable to have kind of more modest expectations through the summer.
But we are seeing an increase over year, so over May 2020.
Yes, overall. And I think that the typical shop being only down slightly is a good sign. I wish we were at the bottom of the market, but I think I'm going to count it as a win if we're just kind of hovering at the bottom of the market. And hopefully we've got the exit, and start to ramp up soon.
So, and we're also seeing sessions and page views strong. So we
Yeah.
just need to, as retailers, try to capture people when they're there, possibly, right?
Yes, and obviously some of that is what can be done on site, but I'm speculating here, but I do think that a lot of the consumer traffic and search volume, consumers are browsing a lot more because there are so many deals out there. And so you're kind of scrolling through sites, you're digging into bikes that are a good deal, and that's why those page views are really up. But then they're shopping around, they're bouncing back out to Google search and going to different sites. Um, when we look at the people for bikes data through March, um, we see something, seemingly similar where online sales are outperforming brick and mortar, and we've been speculating in our meetings that that's also because of the shopping around for deals.
So much we can learn from data. There's so much more I want to ask you, and we're going to do that. But I just want to do a check-in with Workstand. We had the rebrand, the announcement of the point of sale. How are things going, just in general, for you and your team and everything at Workstand?
I think big picture, we're really fortunate. I mean, I think we've got the right product for where the market's going, and we've just got the trust of certainly dealers that work with us. That doesn't mean we're perfect, but there's no doubt that we're a trusted partner. And I think that helps us win goodwill with other dealers who are kind of progressing into bringing more technology into their store. The rebrand's gone really well. I think these things are always a little bit uncertain, and we had the same name for 25 years, but Smart Detailing was the right name in 1999, but it's not the right name for 2024. See what else. The point of sale is on a good trajectory. We only have a handful of active users right now, but I think that's more based on timing. We released it in January, and then February was really strong at retail. And then once you get into the summer, not many dealers are switching their point of sale. But the users that are, we're getting really good feedback, and we're refining it, and getting ready for, a big uptick in the fall. And then I say probably this spring, like website signups have been a lot slower than I'd like to see. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty in the market. I think dealers are being really cautious with their expenses and taking a bit of a wait and see approach. So I don't think anything's necessarily changed in kind of where our technology sits relative to the market, but hopefully dealers have a better sense of how they're financially holding up after Labor Day, and we see that pick back up.
Wow. From where I sit in my position, dealing with our 6P2 groups, which, that's over 70 retailers in North America, I've heard several of them switching to Workstand, or even working with your team to really fine tune their website, like taking it to the next level recently. So it's interesting, the approach that every retailer is taking is a little bit different. But yeah, I've like one of our retailers, Berkshire Bike and Board. I'm sure he'll be okay with me. Stefan, he's great. They just won a President's Award. His website, I know he worked with your team to do, and it's something that I've been using as an example to other retailers about what you can do with your website. So I'm really just pleased to see the work you've been doing. I've been hearing really positive feedback.
I think we've got a really good team, and somebody like Berkshire who chooses to invest in like a custom website. We could make a great looking website. But then yeah, I'm really glad you got that feedback. I was talking, Susie here. I was talking to her the other day about P2. I think being a dealer can be a really lonely experience, and if you don't have a peer network to work with, I've really got to think that not only are P2 members able to kind of draw on the expertise of the rest of the group, but just to have a sounding board of people you trust to kind of check what's going on in your business. I think that's just such a valuable tool right now.
For me, it's one of the best things we do. And, Stefan and Berkshire Bike and Board taking that step to do his website, it was first, hey, P2 group, I'm thinking about doing this. Hey, P2 group, here's how it'll impact our operating and P&L. Hey, P2 group, here's the finished project. and hey P2 group, it's been a couple months and here's how it's impacted. So, and they stay right there connected along the way. And that's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's great.
But I mean, we're talking about retailers and the way that Workstand works with retailers and what the platform allows retailers to easily do to present themselves online. I think it's really a game changer. And I'm so pleased to say that 20% of the retailers choose Workstand. I think 80%, I mean, you make it so easy to just have a very, very, very innovative website that showcases all the products. How is that relationship with retailers right now? Are you bringing on new retailers? Like, what is kind of, I don't know, your focus point there, or what's the feedback you're hearing?
Well, I was visiting a shop in Minnesota, well, right after the retailer summit, and I asked them, what do they consider our biggest strengths? And they didn't hesitate to say data and customer service. And that's exactly what I want to hear. I think those are the roots of our partnership. And the dealers who are signing up today, what I'm hearing, well, I think both those two things stand out, but the data one, everybody's being really careful with their inventory. And I think our supplier sync feature that lets, all the product gets online automatically at the right price and the right inventory level. But then to be able to tie in, 50 different supplier warehouses to show an expanded assortment, and the consumer can clearly see what's in stock and what's in the warehouse. In this market, to be able to eke out some additional revenue without having to carry the inventory, that's a big piece. And then because a lot of dealers who are coming to us now are new to online, it's a foreign world and they have a lot of questions. And the fact that, there's a real person here who probably worked in a bike shop and they're going to answer the phone and talk to you. That's big. And if you're signing up in the summer, you don't have a lot of time. So if you can just delegate things, it's really helpful. It's always been the case that dealers come to us for different reasons. I think I talk a lot about online sales growth and I really stand behind it. But the reality is the number one reason that dealers come to us is because they want their local customers to see what they have in stock. I think it's really a game changer for them when a customer walks in the door and said, "Hey, I saw you have this. Can you show me?" That's the number one reason that somebody chooses Workstand. I'd say, next is a dealer who just wants to make sure that they have a really solid market share locally. They really only care about selling online locally. They really want click and collect orders. They just want to stand out as the more advanced shop in their market. And then the third, it's a smaller group, but these are dealers who just really have online sales as a part of their growth strategy. Like they know that, 10 to 20% of their business is going to be happening online 5 years from now. And they know that them being ahead of the game is going to position them for long-term success. And so those are the dealers who are really driving a lot of the growth for us right now. And they're really satisfying partners to work with. But we try to have something for everybody. And of course, make it easy, just lean on automations. And then have the marketing services in-house. So if you don't have, capabilities or expertise, you can just delegate to us.
It's always interesting when I have a conversation with a retailer. Like, we have an e-bike specific P2 group, and a retailer in that group didn't know about Workstand and how easy you make it to have an online catalog and be able to sell online. And as we were describing this to this retailer, he was like, "Really?" He couldn't believe it. And we were like, "Yes, you got to check it out." So,
I think that's an area we've been trying really hard to get in front of e-bike retailers, and it's been a challenge. But we're making headway, and I'm really thank you for kind of introducing that person to us, and I hope they gave us a call.
yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of new retailers that are opening these e-bike specific stores that haven't been in the industry, so they don't really know that Workstand is the place to go. Um,
Mhm.
anything new? Any new features coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, we're in phases throughout the summer. We're releasing a new conversations feature. That's been asked for years. It's probably our most popular request. But it's an SMS messaging app built right into Workstand. So you can communicate about repairs when an online order is ready to pick up. Include images. Like it's just going to be, I don't know, in an intuitive way to bring more customer service online. And then on the POS front, like we're enhancing the purchase order tool right now. All that data that I talked about earlier, we don't just have the product data, but we have those live inventory feeds from suppliers. And so if you don't have to go between different B2B sites in order to check availability, if it's all just in one purchase order screen, that's a huge advantage and time saving for shops. And so as we're kind of ramping up for that fall season when we have more dealers getting demos and signing up, we really want that to be the most advanced system on the market.
I am happy I'm not in your seat. I feel like technology, like advancements and just consumer expectations are changing at a dramatic pace. And I have no idea how you can stay ahead of these trends and what's happening. But I know you are because you're consistently bringing new things forward. Might you just talk about I know because we're friends on LinkedIn and I know you're reading the retail bulletins and things that are happening. Are there things you're noticing and things that you're doing to stay ahead of these consumer expectations?
Yes. And also, just to be clear, I've got a really talented team. They do all the hard work. They bring ideas to me. So yeah, I learn a lot and I read a lot and I talk to a lot of people. So I try to bring context, but the nuts and bolts, I've got smarter people than me to guide the ship. Um, the onward trend of customers wanting immediate satisfaction and transparency, I mean, those aren't going anywhere. But that's the reason, we try to serve up really accurate inventory really fast, and of course perform, really well in Google searches. I mean, that's really where retail's, the front line of retail is today. Over the last couple of years, we put a lot of energy into making the websites faster, making them mobile optimized, ADA compliant, which I think is really often overlooked until a retailer, gets a threatening letter from an attorney. And then optimizing for Google, and those investments are really paying off. I benchmark our sites, like I'll pick a retailer's website and I'll benchmark it against REI or a brand like Trekker Specialized. And both in terms of speed and ADA compliance, we regularly outperform, those companies. And so I don't know if many bike shops recognize that, that exactly how fast and effective their sites are. But a lot of that work happens behind the scenes. But moving forward, we've really shifted kind of towards the consumer facing side of things. And so we're focusing on the shopping process with things like those enhancements to the product detail page. There's a big improvement coming to the checkout process. So all of that is designed to take all that traffic and convert it into more sales. Because I mean, every year the percentage of retail that's happening online keeps growing. And so we're really laser focused on helping shops keep up with that. And then on that front, the POS is getting a lot of attention for a reason. I mean, we want more shops to have a modern operating system. Without a modern system, they can't, of course, connect their own website. So it really kind of limits the number of dealers that we can partner with. But they can't share their data with suppliers. And that was a big talk at the retailer summit, is that the direct to consumer programs with some sort of shared participation with dealers, I mean, it's not going anywhere, and it's important to be able to participate in those as much as possible and pull as much margin out as you can to get the customer data to try and get add-on sales. But if you're not sharing your data with the suppliers, then you miss out on all of that. And we just want to make sure that those dealers without technology don't just kind of, their business doesn't just erode year after year because they don't have digital capabilities until eventually they're out of business. And we just don't want to see that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with the mobile optimized, faster, websites, ADA compliance, there's so much happening like behind the scenes that like we just think we look at our website and it's good to go, but there's so much technology that goes into it.
We don't want our customers to have to worry about these things. I mean, if you're not alone, that's the advantage of us being a small business just working in a narrow market. We can really look out for our customers. One of those ADA letters will go out and say California, we get alerted and we instantly notify dealers in the area that these threats are happening. We proactively audit their sites. Like we're really, really hands-on.
I've 2 or 3 retailers this past year, unfortunately, got one of those letters from a lawyer.
It's
Um,
such a bummer. Like just
so-
should be criminal.
And you graciously gave a webinar for the MBDA this past month, and part of that webinar, I think you touched upon the checkout process in the shopping cart. And since then, I have been very aware every time I go to buy something online. If the checkout process is easy, I'm definitely more inclined to do it. But if like my data isn't saved, or if I have to, I don't know, if it's hard and there's lots of steps, I'm like, I'll do it later. So it's amazing. You don't even think about it.
Same way. And like I end up, as a bike person and like just with my other hobbies, like I sometimes have to track down kind of esoteric things. And when you're on an outdated website with a bad checkout process, it's such a downer. It gives a negative impression of the business.
It's painful. It's painful. Okay, let's think about 2024 and beyond. If you could just take out, like, say, your crystal ball and make some predictions. Maybe, I don't know, a couple, maybe three, let's say three, e-com trends that you think are going to happen for the bike industry. We're taping here in June, but for the rest of 2024, if you had to think of three trends, what would?
Yeah, I'll say and these are let's say trends, observed trends. So the biggest one is near me searches. Like, so whether it's, just a search in Google Maps or a search in Google, it's just become so important to win that. And I think for dealers, it's even more important because you have so much invested in your physical space and you're counting on that local advantage, but you have to show up and search. And so I think if there's, just one thing that dealers are going to do, it's, make sure that you've got a search optimized website, but maybe that's out of reach for you. But at a minimum, maintain your Google business listings and do search ads. I think that something that gets overlooked with Google search ads is advertisers show up in Google map listings at the top. And so it's a great way for you to overcome like some proximity to the customer challenges that you might have. And so if you're looking to gain local market share, just really focus on those near me searches. And then also in the search space, the data is really clear now that consumers have shifted to being product-based searches instead of destination-based. So what do I mean by that? I monitor search trends around specific products, like somebody is searching for a thing versus somebody is searching for bike shop or some combination. And that has been trending in kind of the wrong direction for bike shops for a couple of years. But in the last 6 months, the pattern has completely changed. Bike shop search volume is not recovering in season the way it has in the past. It's just really stabilized and consumers are just searching for products more. So that should be eye-opening to listeners. Like, you have got to have products on your website, because that's how customers find you. They search for the thing they want, and then where am I going to buy it? They don't search for where am I going to buy it? I hope they have the thing. So you got to get that catalog, and then just remember listing your products on Google so it shows up as that kind of little blue pin saying it's near me, or that's free. You do not have to pay for that, but you have to have a link destination for Google to send people over to. I'd say the biggest kind of uncertainty in the e-commerce space right now is how quickly AI search is kind of coming to be. I think in the last couple of months, anybody who's searched on Google has seen that it's really changed dramatically. And then there's a lot of articles being written about how that is negatively impacting businesses that publish content on their site. So if you have an article like, best places to ride in Birmingham, you're probably not going to win that search business anymore because Google's pulling all the information and serving it up via AI without a consumer ever having to scroll down even on a search page. And so is that directly related to closing a sale? No, but I think dealers have been really counting on having multiple ways to pull consumers onto their site. And that's changing really, really fast. And so, I think that really plays into the catalog enabled website too, because AI hasn't really intruded as much in the product search. I mean, I think they're really moving on to product recommendations based on AI, but it hasn't impacted those shopping tiles that show up. And so that's still the playing field is known. And so just get on that playing field because the rest of search is really being disrupted by AI.
Never even thought about that side, but I'm really glad to hear that your team is like keeping an eye on that and seeing how that might impact. I hate to be the one who always says like, tell me the most important thing. But when it comes to building a successful website, an e-com website, retailers always say like, what is the one thing I could do? What should I focus on? Might you have that?
I hope your listeners don't hit skip on this one because I am repetitive, but like you got to advertise on Google. Like you got to stop putting it off. You maybe felt like you could make a case in the past. You can't anymore. The search market has changed. How customer shopping has changed. You got to get out there and do that. That's the most critical thing. But if you're looking to, well, I think it's what's really important is to make sure with your ecom site to have a goal. You need to define a goal. It's just like other aspects of your business. And so once you have a goal, then you know the purpose of your website and you can build plans around it and giving it appropriate energy. And so maybe it's as simple as just you want to maintain your website with seasonal content so that you get more foot traffic. Maybe it's you want to sell enough online just to offset the cost of your website. You want your marketing to be cost neutral. That's a perfectly reasonable goal. Or maybe you want to sell 5,000 a month or 100,000 a month. As long as you can quantify what your goal is, we're here to help you achieve it. That doesn't mean we can help you sell 100,000 a month overnight, but give us, 2 years and a commitment to Google Shopping ads, and I have no doubt that we can get you to where your website is doing as much business as your store.
And I love the second part there about just define what your goal is. I think that's so important. Just like every aspect of your business, as you said, having a goal will be a really great first start. Ryan, there are some retailers who question, is it enough just to have a website that provides information and knowledge to their customers? Or should their online presence include a robust e-commerce site? Is there a balance? Is there a one over the other? It's kind of a weird question, but just like, how do we prioritize how do we know what to prioritize? I guess that's our
Yeah.
goal, right?
Well, first I'll set aside my biases, but I think that every shop is different. I think that's one of the joys of being in, is the IBD market is there's no one cookie cutter formula, and that diversity of shops is what gives resiliency to the entire network. So I wouldn't say that all shops need to have e-commerce. I think that I've already, I think, made the case for how winning search is really important to preserve a market share or grow your business. But there are other tactics to do that. I think if you focus on just a really, you focus on a niche. For my business, I think about what's our competitive advantage. What is the thing that distinguishes us from, and provides us some defensibility against other companies that might come into our market. If you're a shop who feels like you have a distinctive competitive advantage, maybe just an effective branded website is all that you need. But if you're looking at your business and saying, well, my competitive advantage is I give really good service, that's not defensible. Your mechanic could go to a shop across the street tomorrow, and that advantage is completely gone. And so just make sure that you're not just doing a branded website because it's easier. Ask yourself, is it serving your business model? But I also think, don't make it an either or proposition that, I either can have a well-branded website or I can have an e-commerce website. I think you mentioned Berkshire earlier. Like you can have a great looking e-commerce website. And if you have any doubts about whether or not Workstand can deliver that, just call us and ask for samples because we have some great looking sites out there.
All right, Ryan, I'm gonna be the person, the rider, the consumer rider who's like, when I go to a website, I want it to be greatly branded. I want to know what sets you apart, and I want to see your catalog and know if you have it in stock and know if I can come get it right away because I'm looking at your website because I want to buy something. Like,
Yeah, well, and then I totally agree, and I just don't want to hop in the car and go and see. I mean, I only recreationally shop now if my wife Corey and I are looking for something to do on the weekend. I don't just go to stores and look around. But then also you visit a lot of shops. So I can only imagine that, well, if you're like me, you pull up on your phone the shop before you walk in to kind of see their website. And I mean, you need to walk in the door and smile and be very supportive. But the reality is you probably visit some store websites that are just like that. This is not premium retail. And you know that customer expectations are high and the first impression is made online.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just this weekend, I was looking for a new stem and I went to someone's website and I found the item and went through the whole process and went to the store because of that. So, lot there, but I think it's important to showcase what you have because people's time is valuable and I don't
Yep,
think just driving anymore.
totally agree.
All right, this is sticky, but I'd probably be letting the listeners down if I didn't ask you about discounting.
Hmm.
When we're talking about selling online right now, there's, I'd say, some heavy discounting going on with bicycle retailing. And maybe if you could just share some strategies or value propositions that you might recommend we could focus on instead of discounting to sell the product or retain the customer. I know this is hard because it's a very challenging marketplace right now.
I think it's important to look at what are ultimately transitory market conditions. I mean, in the early days of e-commerce, what I heard most of the time from dealers was it's a race to the bottom. Like if it's purely a price-driven market, and I think history has shown that that's not true. Businesses of all types trying to make money. The premium products that bike shops sell do have MAP programs, but the industry conditions are well documented. We all know why there's discounting happening now, and it can work. I think the two examples are, February being really strong online. That perfectly lines up with this major suppliers putting high-end bikes on sale. And we saw the numbers. So it drove a lot of demand into February. And then we see it in the average order value being up today. I think it's what I think has been called laddering up. So you might have gone in looking for a $1,500 mountain bike, but then you see that the $2,200 mountain bike is on sale and you can get it for only $1,700. Well, you're going to pay a little bit more for it. So there are some advantages to the discounting, but obviously your listeners know all of the downside of it. But getting back to your question, I think that, if you focus on, well, how do you, let's see. Well, I'm just going to use one example because like at every category a dealer sells can warrant a different strategy. So, like to be extreme, tubes don't really need a strategy. They just need good buying. But I've been looking a lot at electric bikes lately for a reason. It's the fastest growing category. I think in terms of dollar volume, it's second only to road in IBD right now. Obviously, there's all kinds of concerns about margin, but the reality is that's what consumers are buying. And in looking at the data, whereas e-bike sales on our platform only represent 2% of total e-bike sales in the IBD channel, the rate of growth for that 2% is significantly outpacing brick and mortar. So it's a really good opportunity to come at a specific market with your message that's different than price. So obviously consumers online are cross-shopping some really affordable direct consumer bikes against what you have to sell. But so what do you do to compete in that, when you're not competing on price? And I just really think that we need to do a better job of stressing the value of a test ride. I think a customer the customer who's new to e-bikes in particular, they're to them it might just be a product. It's like a vacuum cleaner or a grill, and they don't really understand the importance of what it's going to mean for their experience when they're out on a trail. So we've got to figure this one out. Leveraging that advantage of having the in-stock product ready to test ride. And then the other one that I think people tend to shy away from, people make fun of the fact that a customer might buy a bike based on color, but they do. And like if you get them into the store, it's the best way to help them decide if they love a bike. And somebody who loves a bike is going to be a repeat customer. So leveraging things like test ride and like check the color out for yourself. I think those are ways that shops can compete against price.
100%. I'm totally resonating with what you're saying. And When it comes to e-bike in that category, also like the fit of the bike, like the guarantee of the fit. That's something that can't be purchased online. So it's a way we can get people in, and it's a service that we offer, so we don't have to discount that. So some great tips there for retailers. I love that. You talked, I just want to briefly get into supplier fulfillment because we mentioned that earlier. And I
Mhm.
know that, correct me if I'm wrong, but anyone who is working with Workstand has that as an option that they can turn on, I guess, on their website if they'd like to. Any tips for retailers on how they can maximize the potential of that?
Yeah, so for anybody who might not be familiar, fulfillment is what we call drop shipping. And so that allows you to display a product that's in stock at a supplier. And if a consumer purchases it for home delivery, the consumer can get the product faster and you can save the hassle of having to order or pick, package, ship a product. So it's a really popular feature. It is with our Pro package, which is our most popular package, but it does come with our top of the line. And it is no additional charge to use it. So it's something that I think more shops should take advantage of. The process is really straightforward. The technology just works. But it does require some kind of operational tweaks in order to make it work really well. Um, and I think it's really important to be able to move quickly on online orders. Like if you just kind of in the morning check what happened the previous day, you might let down a customer, a product might have sold to a supplier because we don't deprecate supplier inventory when we sell out of it. So the easiest thing you could do is just to set an alert so that you get a push notification anytime an order notification email comes through. You can just tie notifications to the address, email address that it comes from, and then approve the order as quickly as possible. And so our on our system is mobile friendly, so you can do it from your phone if you want, or go to your desk if you feel like that's just how you work better. Um, and and then just communicate, like, make sure that you're working with customers on, emailing them back and forth, giving them updates. I think too many dealers are afraid of drop shipping because they really worry about the edge cases of, will something be out of stock? Does it work perfectly? I think that businesses, are all about navigating imperfection. And so I think once you get rolling and refine your process, it can work really well. But it's the number one thing that's driving those really high performing shops right now is Google advertising and drop shipping. All your costs are tied up in marketing. You don't have the inventory cost. So it's a slightly different way of doing business if you want to make that your growth strategy. But it's attractive and it can be very lucrative.
Yeah, I've talked to several retailers who are finding great success with it, and it takes away that back end of like having someone who does shipping at the store and setting up a whole shipping area in the store. So it really just makes it easy for you as a retailer.
And time, like if you don't, well, if you have a product in stock, do you really want to ship it from your store to the customer only to have to like reorder and restock it? Or if you don't have it in stock, do you want to really wait 3 to 5 days to get it from supplier and then pack it and ship it out to the customer? Customer doesn't want to wait 10 days for a package. So it's just going to help you convert more sales too.
So many little steps, so much time, so much better for the environment. Like I can think of all these things. All right, I got a couple more questions for you. I know we could just talk.
Yeah, we
Um,
listeners have skipped the episodes that Ryan is a guest on. They're long.
I mean, e-commerce, it seems like a no-brainer. I mean, just talking about supplier fulfillment seems so simple. Um, talking to retailers and saying, just get a workstand site. Just it's easy to have a website. Just do it. Let's go. So many shops just kind of take a deep breath and they're like, I don't know, I need to think about this. Why do you think that is?
And there's no judgment in this, but I
Right.
think I would call it fear. That just, when I'm talking to a dealer, it's fear that they don't have the time, it's or they can't keep up, or fear that I need to hire more staff, or fear that I can't compete, or just fear of the unknown. These most bike shop owners, they put a lot of pressure on themselves to be experts. They run a great business, they know bikes inside and out, and all of a sudden now there's an online business. Um, but I think more owners should be comfortable with experimenting, especially with things that are going to lead to sales growth. And I'd say that, so the typical shop is going to have 2 to 3 orders a day. And so I think that the fear that I'm going to be overwhelmed with so many orders, I can't stay on top of it, or I need to hire staff in advance, that no, any owner can stay on top of 2 to 3 orders a day. Now that can add up. So the typical retailer so far this year has done $4,600 a month on their website. And so, to the competition front, yeah, you're not going to, become the #1 seller of specialized saddles in the country if you're a local retailer, but you can certainly gain your share. You can certainly achieve some sales growth you wouldn't have gotten if somebody hadn't come in the door. So I think when you say, or when a dealer says, I can't compete online, I think they just need to ask, well, what am I competing for? And I think competing for incremental growth, competing for market share, you absolutely can win in that area. But the only way to find out is to try. And so I think this, that for us, we don't have any contracts. So it's just sign up, get the website in place, let us coach you, let us help you with your marketing, see what it feels like to process 2 to 3 orders a day, and see what it does for contributing to your sales.
Yeah, like set a goal that we can actually reach and then go from there.
Yeah.
And it can be manageable.
Mhm.
You spoke a little about AI and how that might impact the future. And I think the last question that I'd like to ask you is about, let's say, the next 5 years. And I mean, you've been in this a long time. You've been in the industry. You've had multiple roles within the industry. I consider you a very intelligent human. I'm very thankful to be your friend. Technology is changing very quickly. So regarding the e-commerce space for bicycle retailers in the next 5 years, like what do you think some of these changes are and how could we best position it? And I know that this is, again, like crystal ball, but I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Well, unfortunately, I don't, well, not unfortunately. Unfortunately, for those sitting on the sidelines, it doesn't require a crystal ball. I mean, I think that the future for online in the bike space is pretty clear. So in the overall retail, within a few years, 1 in 5 dollars sold at retail is going to happen online. It's steadily been growing. It's north of 15% already. Maybe it'll be less than that for complete bikes, but for aftermarket, I have no doubt that aftermarket sales are going to line up with overall retail. And then, looking at the market today, suppliers are really just starting to figure out the direct consumer business. There maybe most aren't even particularly good at it yet, but they're focused on it, and they're focused on it because they know that they need to connect customers with their product in as many markets as they can. And they know that, their dealerships that they work with don't always have the capabilities to connect customers with the product easily. And then let's not hide from the fact that suppliers can eke out some additional margin if they can sell direct. So all those things really motivate suppliers. And so there's only going to be more competition online. And so then do you put up your hands, or do you, compete for it? And so I say that now is the time to either build a sustainable business plan that accounts for you giving up market share to that, with those changing conditions, or you build the capabilities to compete. There are plenty of shops that can sustain themselves purely off of the brick and mortar strategy. We talked about competitive advantage earlier. If you are honest with yourself and you have one, maybe the market shifts won't impact you the same. But if you're listening to this and you can't say with confidence that you have defensible characteristics of your business, I would take a really hard look to make sure you have the right technology, because regardless of what your individual beliefs might be about the customer buying experience being better if they come in your store, you unfortunately don't have control over the customer, and the customer is shifting more towards online.
Yeah, I 20% of all retail sales within a few years. I mean, yeah, we know it's going that direction, and I would suggest that retailers listening do diversify their strategy, right? And think about the future and how they're going to have a role in that.
I do want to remind your listeners, though, that whether it's for us, where about half of our orders online are for click and collect, or I forget what the numbers are for Target and Dick's, but it's a really high percentage of orders that are fulfilled from their local inventory for click and collect. And so I think if the listeners are hearing the shift towards e-commerce and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to, how am I, what am I going to do if I'm not selling items online and shipping? It's just another way to get customers in the store. It's the same thing you're used to dealing with. It's just the order of operations are different. You know, you're used to having them walk in, suggest items, then go to the register. Well, today it's customer, goes to the register themselves online, comes in, then you get to have those conversations and upsell to them. So just consider it an evolution of your business and not you're not turning it upside down.
And Ryan, I'm over here thinking about what we're saying, and me being a busy mom of 2 high school kids, like it is so easy for me to purchase ahead online and pick it up in the store, because then I don't worry that I'm gonna get there and it's not gonna be in stock. I can just, 'cause I don't have a lot of time.
Oh, to walk all the way across Target only to find an empty hook. Oh, so discouraging.
It's discouraging. We covered a lot, probably too much for an hour, but great
Mhm.
insight. I always love every opportunity I have to sit down with you. Thankful again that you prioritize the time to come to the MBDA Retailer Summit and have those meaningful conversations. I saw you sitting with so many retailers, taking the time, taking lunch breaks just to have those conversations in person. And it just meant a ton to me and to the retailers. If people are listening, they have questions, best way to get a hold of you or the team.
Email me anytime. It's ryan.a@workstand.com. Or I am on LinkedIn a lot, so you can message me there, or just call customer service and tell them you want to talk, and they'll Slack me your info, and I'll call you back as soon as I can.
Excellent. Ryan, thank you.
Heather, I love this. Thank you, and keep doing your great work.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes.